All right, this one is for all of you content creators out there, and you know who you are. You're the ones who are tweeting every day. You're putting out content on LinkedIn. You're writing little mini blog articles. You're doing your newsletter. You're putting out shorts on Instagram, on Twitter. You got your YouTube videos, all of it. And I love it. I love this because I believe there has never been a better time in all of human history than right now for a single person to share their story and reach millions and millions of people, and then to take that audience, those eyeballs, those listeners, and convert them into, paying audiences that can help support your life. And I think those are some of the most beautiful business models out there. I think about people like Tim Ferriss, who's like probably one of the OGs of like full-time content creators. If you think about the businesses that he's built, yes, he's had his product businesses, but what we know and love about him is his podcast, the Tim Ferriss podcast, or his book, The 4-Hour Work Week. And that's just him sharing his stories in a way that connects and brings value to his listeners. The same way Joe Rogan in this podcast, right? Like, I love content creators because I think we all have a unique perspective and story to share with the world. And the people who are brave enough to actually do that on a consistent basis, they will reap the rewards. They will build the most beautiful businesses worth owning in the future. And I think this opportunity is available to everybody listening to this right now. Right now, this podcast that you're listening to is me creating content for you in an attempt to hopefully bring some value to your day as you hear my story, as I share insights or lessons learned, battles lost, and hopefully that helps you in your journey. And so I'm practicing what I preach in a very, very real, pragmatic way with this podcast, with what I do on YouTube and Twitter and like all these places, right? But I want to share this with you because here's the truth is like, while there has never been a better time to do all this stuff, to create an audience, to create a life of impact through your content, through your story, it is also very, very difficult. It is, in fact, one of the most difficult things in the world, not just because of the work and energy that goes into creating awesome content, but maybe most importantly, the reason it's so hard is because a lot of times it will just feel like you are shouting into oblivion, that you are shouting into a bottomless well, and that there is nobody on the other side who gives a shit. And it's hard. It's hard when you pour your heart and your soul into something, into a piece of content, and you share it with the world, and you expect the accolades would be great, but really anything would be better than nothing. And when you put out a piece of content that you put so much of yourself into and it gets crickets, nobody even sees it. It's not the end of the world, but it sure feels like it. It sure feels like, what was I doing? What is all this for? Why am I spending my time, my life, my energy doing this thing? And when this happens once, fine. But when it happens twice or 3 times for 2 weeks or for a month, for 6 months, or a year in a row, then you really start to question what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if you're doing it right, if it's even worth the time and the energy anymore. Maybe you suck. Maybe you should move on and do something different. And I know this journey. I know this battle. I fought this battle. I still fight this battle. So if you're listening to this, you might have a particular vision of who I am and like the success that I've had as a creator. You know, if you've seen on YouTube, we have hundreds of thousands of subscribers there, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, like across all these platforms. Our content has a massive reach these days. But it wasn't always this way, guys. It really wasn't. I've been creating content now consistently since 2019. It is now 2023. And I remember in 2020, I set the goal that I was going to make a video every single day and post it to Instagram. Not because I thought that the content was going to be fantastic and that it was going to attract this massive audience or anything like that. It was, in the beginning, it was just about, I need to find my voice. I need to put in the reps. I need to get over that initial hurdle of like sharing myself with the world and not caring if people, 1, liked it, or 2, if they hated it. Like, I needed to get over that. And so I set the goal in 2020 that I was going to release a video every single day on Instagram. And I did that. And truly, like, none of the content hit. Like, none of it resonated, I guess. It wasn't very good, and that's fine. Like, at the beginning, you're just not very good. And that's what I took that to mean. I was like, I'm just not good enough at this yet. I need to improve. And so in 2021, I kept doing it. I kept putting out content consistently, and sometimes there would be one or two pieces that would do better than other times, but nothing that ever went like truly viral. And so I would see my friends or these other creators who I looked up to, or maybe I looked over at, and I was like, I'm better than you. Why is my stuff not doing as well? And I would think like, oh, the algorithm is shadow banning me, or like the algorithm just doesn't understand, or something's broken. And so I deleted my Instagram account. I started a new one. I was like, maybe this will help. And it didn't help. And so then I was like, oh shit, my content really does suck. And so it wasn't until about September or October of 2022. So this is now about maybe 9 months ago, that we had our first video on YouTube go viral, 1.5 million views. And it absolutely changed my perspective of the whole game. Like overnight, like I didn't think that the content was significantly better than anything that I had done before. Just all of a sudden, for whatever reason, you're at the right point in time and the algorithm takes you and off you go. And since then, it's been a wild ride, not just on YouTube, but on all the platforms. And the content just consistently is performing better than it's ever performed better in the past. And it's mind-boggling. In the past, I would have been psyched to get like 20. In the past, I'd been psyched to get like 5 likes on a video. And these days, we're getting 30, 40, 50,000. And that's like, it's an unfathomable amount of attention, honestly, in a lot of ways. But I want to share this, is that regardless of where you think that I am at this point in my journey, I want you to know that I'm not terribly different than you and wherever you are on your journey. If you're just starting out, or if you've been doing this for a couple of years and you're still putting out the content and like it's still not hitting. The truth is, like, I still put out a lot of content that absolutely flops daily on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. Once a week, I might have a post that does really, really well. And I post every single day on all those platforms, so a unique piece of content. But the majority of it does not do exceptionally well. They'll do fine, but not by the standards of when you're like, oh, when you've gotten 20, 30,000 likes on something and suddenly you're getting 20, not 1,000, just 20. You're like, oh, that really flopped. That really sucks. And it can be so demoralizing. Whether you've had that success and now you're not just consistently getting it, or if you're just starting out and you haven't seen any of the traction, the flywheel is still fucking heavy in the beginning and you still haven't gotten it moving yet, it can be so demoralizing and think I should just give up and quit. But I'll tell you this, is that you can't win unless you get started, and you can't lose unless you quit. And so when it comes to content, you got to get in the game. You have to start. And if you stay in the game, you just don't quit. It's just a matter of time until you do get that traction, until that flywheel does start moving. And it might truthfully take way longer than you think it should. It might take a month. It might take a year. In my case, it took 3. It took 3 years before I started seeing like meaningful progress, guys. And the only thing in all of that you can control, the only thing that you can control when you put out that piece of content that you poured your heart and your soul into and you put it out into the world and nobody even notices it, the only thing that you can control is just to get up tomorrow and create the next thing. That's all you can do. You just take another swing at the bat. And the thing is, it's free to take that swing at bat. Nobody's stopping you. There's no gatekeepers. You can just keep getting up and swinging the bat over and over and over and over and over. And eventually you will hit the ball. And I know it's so hard on certain days to get up and do that because I feel it. I feel even now when I put so much time and energy into a thing and I see, oh, that flopped. I didn't do well. It can be so easy to get angry and to get frustrated at everybody else that just doesn't understand. And I encourage you on those days when things are going well and on those days when things are going poorly to just remember this. You can only control the thing that you do next. And this is important because even when things hit, you will be tempted just to like fall into this oblivion of like refreshing on that one post, seeing the numbers continue to skyrocket, and you're just kind of riding the high of that piece of content that's suddenly doing really well. Like I felt this when we had our video that took off on YouTube. I was like just constantly watching it, seeing how it's doing. But you know what I wasn't doing when I was doing that? I wasn't working on the next thing. I wasn't creating the next piece. In the same way that when you put up that content that flops and you sit there and you dwell on it, the one thing that you're not doing, the only thing that's going to control whether or not you're eventually going to get that flywheel going is to show up and do the next thing, is to start creating the next piece. But when you're dwelling or you are reveling, whichever the case may be, you are not doing the one thing that matters most, which is creating the next thing. So I share that with you because if you're a content creator, you will fall into these traps. I promise you, you're not a unique, special butterfly in that way. We've all been there. We will all continue to be there. And so I encourage you to just continue to work on the next thing because it is the only thing that matters. It is the only thing that matters. So I hope this brought you a little bit of value. Hopefully it helps you, whether you're at you're dwelling right now or you're reveling, whichever case it may be, helps you focus on what truly matters and you get your ass back into the workshop and you start creating the next thing. I can't wait to see what it is. But until then, my friend, stay hyper-focused.